And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And week 8 is in the books of the 2024 MLR season. And what a week it was. A lot of interesting developments, a couple of upsets, and a lot of movement. I think this is the most movement in 1 week in the power rankings overall. We have a new number 1. We'll figure out who that is. And also, too, a couple of milestone accomplishments from individual players throughout this week. So a lot to get over, so let's get to it. Again, if you've never seen my power rankings videos, the way that we rank these videos is not about the records. It's not about where these teams are in the overall standings on the conferences of the West or Eastern Conference. It's all about what they're doing on the pitch, who they're playing against, who they're beating, where they're beating them at, how badly they're beating them. A lot of other factors go into it. It just happens that sometimes it corresponds where your higher ranked teams are the top teams of the conferences, but sometimes you'll see a lower ranked team in the standings make their way up depending on if they're beating higher ranked teams or really destroying certain teams on their way, making their way up. So a lot of things actually go into this whole process, and I'll explain a little more as we go through it. But enough talking, let's get to it. Your number 12 team, they were on a bye, so they actually got a little break here. But because of that, I'm not big on moving teams up or down if you're on a bye. So the number 12 team stays the number 12 team. New kids on the block. One of the new kids on the block, Anthem Rugby Carolina, stays at number 12. Still looking for that first win. A little teaser, though, for my next video as we're previewing Week 9. They might get their first win this coming weekend. Unfortunately, a team that, I hate to say it, slides down to number 11, drops a couple spots. Another new kid on the block, Rugby Football Club LA, losing pretty single-handedly to the Chicago Hounds in Chicago, losing them 31-54. I'm not going to preface this with any excuses because obviously you guys know where my loyalties lie, being an LA boy, working with Rugby Football Club LA as their PA announcer, which I have some big news about what's coming on this weekend if you're in the LA area. A double header of rugby heading your way. Again, I'll talk about it more in the next video. LA is, and a lot of teams are. We're heading into the mid part of the season. A lot of teams are beaten up. As I've mentioned before in previous videos, rugby, especially in Major League Rugby, is really a game of attrition. It's really about which team is left standing, literally, at the end. You may start out really strong, but you might see your roster depleting. And if you don't have a strong roster going into the playoff push, you're probably going to be on the outs, or even limping your way into playoffs may not guarantee that you make it into the MLR Shield game. So LA comes into Chicago very depleted. Andrew Coe is still on suspension. James Stokes and Yuri Van Buren, I find out, are suffering from season-ending injuries. Well, James Stokes might come back. We will see, but Yuri Van Buren is definitely out for the season. Jason Ewok Emery was out with injury. Matt Heaton is, again, mazel tov to Atlas Heaton, the little baby boy from Matt Heaton and his wife. Unfortunately, Matt Heaton was unable to make the trip over with LA, so a lot of players not available for LA. They did pick up former Giltini's Brooklyn Hardecker, and just to show you the lack of depth on the team, he started. He was with the team for less than a week and already starting this game against Chicago. And again, game started pretty much Chicago right off the bat, scores 3 tries. LA scored a couple tries off of that. Unfortunately, LA did get a yellow card, their 13th yellow card of the season. They are the most yellow card team in the league. Just to show you a comparison, Utah got a yellow card in their game. They're 4th. They are the least yellow card team in the league. 4 yellow cards to 13 for LA. Again, just a lot of penalty issues for LA, a lot of handling issues for LA. 9 handling errors in the first half alone to Chicago's 0. It was amazing that LA was only down 26-12 at the half. Starting the second half, now Saunders, the team captain for LA, who's been phenomenal for the team, was able to score a quick try to get them within 7. But then after that, it was all Chicago. 3 straight tries, including Dylan the Butcher Fawcett's 48th league leading try. 48 tries. He has the most tries in MLR history. Include also too. Ben Saunders, Ben Landry got a brace in this game for Chicago, and then to the dagger in the heart for LA was awesome Nate Osberger getting a hat trick. Semi Kunatani, who was another great LA player, was able to get a try to keep LA fighting, but it was just too much. LA falls 54-31, and still is searching for that second win of the season. Also sliding down a couple spots from number 8 to number 10, the NOLA Gold, who loses to Miami 27-42. That gives Miami their second win of the season. Big win for Miami. I'll go a little bit more into the Miami camp on this. NOLA actually started off strong at first. They scored the first try, but then they were down at the half 19-15. NOLA was completely overwhelmed by the scrum of Miami, pushed continuously, several penalties for pulling the scrum down. NOLA just did not seem like on the right track. NOLA then did get a yellow card, which Miami, of course, capitalized on. NOLA was able to score at the 60th minute and actually came within winning the game. Holden Youngert, the vampire or the Wolverine, however you want to nickname him because of his unique hairstyle, almost scored a winning try for NOLA, but unfortunately knocked it on within the last couple of seconds right at the goal line. And unfortunately for NOLA, Miami was able to throw another try and therefore stole the game, put it away pretty single-handedly, 42-27. Yeah, NOLA was just not enough for Miami in this game, and unfortunately, NOLA is back at the drawing board, suffering their 4th loss of the season, 3-4, and they slide down a couple spots in this game. Moving on, dropping another couple of spots, Old Glory from number 7 to number 9, losing to Houston. 17-38. Not really much to talk about in this game. It was pretty much all Houston in the game. Old Glory did score a try with Corey Daniels at the very beginning, but Houston just dominating the first half, 31-10, and it never got much better for Old Glory after that. Yeah, not much to say. Old Glory has been the team that's been surprising to me. We will be doing a mid-season comparison between my way too early predictions and where we are right now in the power rankings, and I believe I have Old Glory a little bit higher up. Right now, Old Glory is kind of limping into the second half of the season, and this shellacking by Houston doesn't help them with any favors. Moving up a couple of spots because of the big win over NOLA is the Miami Sharks. So far, they are one of the new teams with the highest amount of wins, 2 wins to LA's 1 and Anthem Rugby Carolina's 0. Miami, again, proving that they are a very, very good-looking team, pretty much beating down NOLA. Big shout-out to Santiago Videla, the fly half that took over in this game for, I believe, a hurt Felipe Echeverri. He was solid in this appearance as a starter. 15 points, 6 for 8 off of the tee. But Miami, very, very dominant in this game against NOLA. And congrats to them for getting their second win of the season. They do have the opportunity to get a couple more depending on how the season looks. Especially they do have another game with Anthem Rugby. So at least that's one more win for them, theoretically. But Miami definitely is fighting NOLA for that 4th playoff spot in the Eastern Division. Utah, after losing, actually, the big upset in this game, number 7, sliding up from number 10 to number 7, the Utah Warriors in a phenomenal game, defeating San Diego 33-32 in San Diego. That's the very first win for the Utah Warriors in San Diego, or at least in the home stadium of San Diego. Big upset, in my opinion. Utah was looking like a team similar to Old Glory that was kind of just limping into the season. But San Diego, interestingly enough, and we'll go a little bit more over it when we talk about San Diego, kind of falling behind at the very start of games. Last week, they were falling behind of... I forgot who they were playing against last week in San Diego, but they were falling behind 0-17. In this game, they were behind Utah 17-10, and it looked like San Diego was able to come back, but Utah just shutting the door on San Diego and really playing some phenomenal rugby. Highlight to one of their young players, Michael Manson, a young New Zealander, first year in Major League Rugby, easily top contender for Rookie of the Year for this season. He got his 5th and 6th try of the season, a brace. He is fast. He's very tough to tackle, and he got his 6th brace, which ties him for second with, I believe, Reese McDonald for the most tries of the season, just behind Duo Kotse, who of course had that game where he had 5 tries in one game, so he sits at top at number 9. But with the way Michael Manson's playing, I wouldn't be shocked if he starts really pushing to be the top try scorer this season. And again, Utah just looking really phenomenal. Joel Hodgson was very shaky so far this season. He has one of the lowest kicking accuracy percentages in the league, but this game he was phenomenal. A solid 18 points off of the tee, 7 for 9. So even though he did miss a couple, when he needed to make some penalty kicks and conversions, he was clutch. So really contributed to that win. So big win for Utah. And they are not dead in the Western Conference, which, again, as I mentioned before at the very beginning in my way too early prediction and preview video of the season, the Western Conference is going to be much more competitive than the Eastern Conference because the Eastern Conference has 2 new teams compared to West 1. Utah is fighting for that 4th playoff spot, and it's not going to be an easy fight for Utah and Dallas and possibly I don't know, possibly either San Diego or Houston or Seattle. I mean, any of those teams are still fighting for those 4 spots, but Utah definitely making their name known that they can get that 4th playoff spot. Speaking of the before mentioned Dallas Jackals, they sit at number 6. They had a bye, so again, they don't get to move or go up or go down. As I mentioned before, San Diego dropping out of the top 4 for the first time this season, dropping from number 3 to number 5 with that loss to the Utah Warriors. Again, San Diego just has a tendency to kind of get behind the beginning of the game. They're at the beginning at the end of the half, they were down 17-10. Even though they were looking like they were coming back, Cyril Kama, former Giltini's, got another try, 2 tries in a row in back-to-back weeks. Also, too, Mikey Teo got his 30th try in his Major League Rugby career. He is only the 3rd man to ever score 30 tries. He is sitting at number 3 overall all-time try-scoring record, just behind Rickard Hadding and, of course, Dylan the Butcher Fawcett. So congratulations to Mikey Teo, 30 tries. Again, only the 3rd man in Major League Rugby history to score 30 tries, but that was just not enough for San Diego to overcome Utah. There may be some argument of why Utah hasn't gone up higher. Again, just felt that from 10 to 7 is a pretty big jump, and San Diego did, they weren't slaughtered by Utah. They did make the comeback. They just, didn't have enough in them to get the win. This is the first loss for San Diego at home in their new stadium. So kind of a big loss for them, but big win for Utah. We'll see if Utah can bounce over them next time. Number 4, moving up from number 5, is the Houston SaberCats after defeating Old Glory pretty single-handedly, 38-17. Again, really not much to say about that game. It was pretty one-sided from the start, but Houston, again, kind of solidifying that they are going to be one of those top teams in a very competitive Western Conference. Chicago, as I mentioned before, just took LA to the butcher shop and just butchering them up 54-31. They do move up a spot to the number 3 spot, which I think is the highest that Chicago has ever been in my power rankings throughout this is their 3rd season in the league. They are, like I said, they are starting to look like the team that they're supposed to be. They have so many weapons. I think what's really helped them is, first of all, having Dylan the Butcher Fawcett, who again scored his 48th league-leading try in this game against LA. They have him as the starting hooker. Nate, the awesome Osberger, was able to get a hat trick in this game. Billy Meeks is now sitting in his rightful spot at the number 12 spot as the center rather than the weird fullback, fly half, flanker positions that he's been playing around with. All those experiments, I think they finally figured out just why do you have to fix it if it's not broke. Let Billy Meeks be where he's supposed to be. And Chicago is now starting to look like a very dangerous team. And again, I mentioned in my way too early predictions that they would be the front runner to be in the Major League Championship on the Eastern Conference. And they're starting to kind of look like that now in the crucial halfway point of the season. Now, of course, the big game, and the game that we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about SuperBru, Seattle and New England. I don't think anybody had this one picked out. In the end, Seattle was able to overcome the reigning and defending and formerly the number 1 team in my power rankings, New England Free Jacks. Seattle was able to become victorious over them 29-21 in Quincy, Mass, in New England. Seattle gets the win. Huge win. Seattle looked phenomenal. New England they just didn't look very good in this game. Seattle looked very dominant. They looked like a hot team from the very start. Another milestone in this game, Rickard Hadding was able to score a try, and that was his 42nd try. So again, solidifying his spot as the second highest try scorer in Major League Rugby history, just behind Dylan the Butcher Fawcett's 48 and above Mikey Teo's 30. So all 3 of your top MLR try scorers scored in this week. So a pretty phenomenal milestone of a week. But Seattle solidifying themselves as the number 1 team in the power rankings, moving from number 2 to number 1. And that's where we are after a very interesting and exciting week number 8. I think every team moved a spot except for the 2 teams that were on byes. The rest of everybody else moved at least 1 spot. And it's very interesting. You do now have a presence by the Eastern Conference that's not just New England. And coincidentally, Chicago is kind of fighting New England for that top spot. Chicago is behind New England, even with this loss, is still a game ahead, and I believe like 9 points ahead of Chicago anyway. So New England is still pretty much in that number 1 spot. But power rankings wise, I think Chicago is fighting for New England for a top spot. And then of course you have Houston, who still is pretty dominant. San Diego, that surprising loss to Utah drops them down. But again, you see how competitive that Western Conference is. You have Seattle, Houston, San Diego, Dallas, and Utah all in my top 8. The surprising move is, of course, the new kids, the Miami Sharks, moving into the top 8. And then, the teams that are on the bottom. With the exception of Old Glory, that I thought would do better. I really did feel NOLA was going to struggle again this season. And sadly, LA still trying to look for their second win. And Anthem still trying to look for their first. But, this is the power rankings. I'm liking how it's turning out. Again, next week is the midpoint of the season. We'll do a comparison of how these standings look, or these power rankings look, with my way too early prediction, and see how far off my predictions are. It usually is pretty entertaining to watch. Also pretty entertaining is, of course, let's talk about SuperBru. So let's go over this week's number 1 winner. And congratulations, Julie EGW. You have the golden cap in a brutal week. With the updated SuperBru, they tell me how many points you could possibly get in the week. 14 points was the most points you can get this week out of all the Major League Rugby games. And, not discrediting Julie EGW. Julie, you did a great job. Congratulations, you got the golden cap. But 5.83 was the top score. Less than 50% of overall points. Julie, EGW, 5.83. But that just shows you how horrible this whole week was for everybody. 5.83 was the most. Tied for second was a bunch of people, including Lady Juliet, JZS, CrossFox, John Hawkins, and then they're all in the number 4 spot. And then unfortunately, the wooden spoon this week was our very first winner in our very first SuperBru all day long. But again, all day long, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Everybody did really horrible this week. Moving on to our overall top 10. Sarai is still number 1, 50.08, but with how well JZS did this week, he moved up 2 spots to number 2, and he is closing in on Sarai. He's only less than 2 points behind at 48.33, so going to be very, very close. This is a heated up competition to get that top spot in our SuperBru. James A6117 stays at number 3 with 48.16. Tex, who was number 2, slides down to number 4 with 46.91. And then MSDRFC83, our former reigning and defending, our current reigning and defending SuperBru champion, is sitting at number 5 with 45.83. Our bottom 5 looks like this, and pretty much not much has changed. Just a little bit of movement. Red Baron still sits at 26 with 33.75. Lady Juliet, because she did so well this week, moves up 2 spots to 32.5 at number 27. I unfortunately moved down a spot, 32.41 at 28, and then Sunshine moves down a spot to 29, and then Leon still sits at the bottom at 27. But God bless you, Leon. You continue to put in your picks. I know I talked about with a couple of players in our SuperBru. It is tough when you're on the bottom to dig your way up. It is, like I said, a very, very stiff competition in this game. So that is our power rankings for this week of week 8. Again, let me know what you think about where the teams are, where your team is. Do you think I got it wrong? Do you think I got it right? Let me know. It is it's nice to see a lot of change and see how teams are moving. And again, kind of forming into the way that I somewhat pictured it to be as we get into the midway point. But anything could happen. Anything can change. We can see a team like Miami slowly make their way up if they get into a hot streak. And we can also see certain teams fall their way down. It's the fun about these power rankings and Major League Rugby as a whole. So anyways, thank you very much for watching my video. As always, I appreciate it. And I'll see you on the pitch.